Okay. All right. I'm so happy to see y'all today. Y'all look so amazing. Happy Mother's Day. I'm gonna start with a little disclaimer. I got my allergies is really messing with me today, so if I get up here and I start crying, it could be. It could be my allergies. It could be God is just working some things out in me as well. So I'm gonna ask that you turn with me to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 11. I have two scriptures today that are going to be our foundation. Y'all ready? It reads, He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom, and he shall gently lead those that have young. Our second foundational scripture today is before, is James 1, verse 5. I'll give you a second to get there. It reads, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you. Oh, my bad. Jeremiah. Sorry if you were lost. Jeremiah 1 and 5. So it is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers in the room. And we know how easy motherhood is, right? It's a walk in the park. We always say the right things. We always say and do everything perfectly, and our kids are perfect and they do everything right. Motherhood is just sunshine and rainbows, a piece of cake, right? Well, we celebrate that mother whose life is like that, but I don't know her, okay? I'm going to talk to a different mother. I'm going to talk from a different space, okay? I'm going to talk from the point of a mother that isn't just standing in the rain, but she is in a full thunderstorm. The wind is going 100 miles per hour. Lightning is hitting every direction. And the storm has been going on so long, and she's been holding her hands out like this that her hands are numb, right? The storm has been going on for so long that she doesn't even know what life is like before the storm started, right? There's a mother who may have drove here today, who fixed her face in the parking lot, came in and smiled at everybody, and nobody knows what happened yesterday, what it took for her to get here. It could be somebody online right now watching, and her storm is raging so much that she couldn't even leave the house. That's the mother I want to talk to today. These are the mothers that I want to encourage today because I know that place, right? And a lot of us know that place. So it's really interesting the day that Coach asked me to speak today, I immediately responded with the laughing emoji, right? And it's not for the reasons why you might think, it's because just a few hours earlier, I am crying. I am in full blown sobs. And he said, You want to talk on Mother's Day? Laugh. LOL. And so I'm in my office and I'm crying. My daughter is going through some things and my son is going through some things. And I just start replaying stuff in my mind like, did I do this? Is what they're going through a result of my parenting? And a lot of you might not know this, But I had Tylana when I was 18, and I had Fonte when I was 19. And even though they are grown now, motherhood doesn't stop when our kids grow up. And sometimes it doesn't even get even easier at all. So yes, they are grown today, but I started thinking about me. Like I was 19 and I'm raising two kids, and already by the time of 19, I've already had my own life's trauma, right? So I'm a child and I'm raising children while trying to heal. And so I started thinking, man, did I damage my kids? And so that's why I thought it was funny when coach asked me to speak, and I thought, okay, okay, God. So when I'm crying, before I get the text from coach, I'm calling my friends and nobody's available to take my call to hear me whine. Okay. And that's God's design, because God didn't want me to hear from anybody else. He wanted me to hear from him. Okay. And I did hear from God. You know how God talks to you in this period of fasting and his voice is so clear? I wasn't fasting, but he was so clear, right? And it wasn't audible. It was just inside, just the way that you know that God talks to you. And it wasn't correction, what he said. It wasn't disappointment. It was just a whisper. He said, motherhood was never about you being perfect. It was always about obedience. It was about trust. He said, I never asked you to be me. I asked that you trust me while raising what I entrusted to you. And I just sat there and I cried all over again, because God started to undo some of the things that I've been carrying, right? And sometimes we think that we're the author of everything that our child goes through, right? But we're not. We are a guide, we're a covering, but God is still their God, right? Even in the times where there seems like no plan is there, there is a plan, right? Even the chapters where your heart is broken, God knows the plan. So these children that we are raising, right? They're not just our children. They're children of God, right? So that means you're a child of God. You're a child of God. You're a child of God. Yes, you, even you, you're a child of God too. So think about this. We don't let anybody around our kids, right? We don't let them go spend a night at anybody's house. We don't just trust them to anyone. We got to know where they are and who they're with, right? And God is the same way. He's not careless with his children. He is not random with who he entrusts them to. Um, he doesn't just hand kids out and hope for the best, right? So when God looked across eternity, he looked at you. He looked at you. He looked at me. And he said, yes, this was not a mistake. This was not desperation. This is not because no one else wanted to do it. The calling that God has on your life as a mother was not an accident. It is architecture. God designed us for the children that we have. And he entrusted his child to you, not any child, his child. And he did it on purpose with the full knowledge of everything that you are, everything that you have done, everything that you have went through. God already knew that we were going to go through these things. God already knew that we were going to have these challenges, and he still said you. He still said me. This was not an assignment, this was an appointment. And so my message today is that God trusted me. Even when I didn't trust myself, God trusted me with motherhood, and he trusts you too. So it's Mother's Day, and a lot of times um, we want to talk about women of the Bible, right? And I'm going to do that today. My first point is that God sees you, okay? So I want to talk about Hagar in Genesis 16 and 21. And when we read the Bible last year, I read her story, but something this year changed when I went back to read her story. Something hit a little bit more, something resonated with her story a little bit more for me. So she was an Egyptian woman living as a slave in that household of Abram and Sarah, who would later become Abraham and Sarah. And she was their servant, which means she had no legal standing, she had no rights, she had no property. And Sarah couldn't conceive. And back then it was okay for you to give your slave to your husband to conceive a child, and that child would then be the property of the wife, not the surrogate. Okay? So Sarah gave Hagar to Abram. Hagar um, had no say in the matter. She conceived, and things got complicated. Hagar started to look at Sarah differently, and Sarah was ruthless and mean and harsh. Okay? And Hagar ran. She ran into the wilderness, and she found a spring of water. And that's where God found her. The angel of the Lord appeared and asked her, "Where you come from? Where are you going?" And she said she's running away from her mistress because she was being mistreated. But for where she was going, she had no idea. God gave her a promise about her son that she was carrying and sent her back. And in that moment, alone, pregnant, and in the wilderness, Hagar did something. She gave God a name. In Genesis 16 and 13, she gave this name to the Lord, who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me, El Roy, the God who sees me." That name only appears at one time in Scripture, given by a single mom alone in a desert. So if you're in a desert and you're alone, God sees you. She went back and she gave birth to Ishmael. Um, Years passed, and then Sarah was finally able to conceive. And at a celebration for Isaac, she decided that it was time for Hagar and her son to be sent away, right? Only her son can get the glory. Only her son can get the attention. So Abraham didn't want to do it, but he gave him some water and he sent him off. So she's in the desert with her son, and they run out of water. She puts her son under the bush. He's crying. She's crying. She can't stand to see her son in pain because she knows they're going to die. No one's coming, right? Water ran out. A mother alone in the desert again. But then there's a voice that says, "What's the matter? Don't be afraid. God, ha- God has heard you. He has heard the boy crying. Lift the boy up. Lift him up. Take him by the hand, and I will make him into a great nation." God's words are gentle. He didn't say you should have planned better. He didn't say you should have brought some extra water. He didn't say, you know what, duh, you went the wrong way. The spring is around the corner. What he did was he said, "Don't be afraid. I've heard you. I see you both." And he opened her eyes to the well that was already there. The well wasn't new. He didn't create it in that moment, okay? It was already there, waiting for the moment to open her eyes to it, right? And some of us are in our own wilderness, and God is just waiting for us to see the provision that He's already provided for us, right? She called him the God who sees her. God could have chosen anybody to name him this way. It could have been a king, it could have been a prophet, it could have been a priest, but He chose her. So the mother who came here today, and nobody knows what she's carrying, God sees you, okay? The one who is doing it alone, not because it was your choice, but that's just how things happen. God sees you, okay? The mothers whose sacrifices don't get posted, God sees you, right? The mother who is doing so much for everyone, but her hard work goes unnoticed by the very people she's working the hardest for. God sees you. So not only does God see you, but also God provides. Okay? My second point is God provides for you. And I want to talk about the two widows in Kings. There's two different widows, two different situations, but the same God. Okay? The first woman was not just poor, she was a Gentile. Okay? She was not a part of God's people. She had no claim on him. She was an outsider by race, religion, nationality, but yet God sent the prophet to her. He did not send the prophet to his own people. And this widow, she was gathering sticks for her last meal. She had already done the math, and she knew that she didn't have enough, right? She gonna gather these sticks, she gonna make her last loaf of bread. And some of us have already done the math too, right? Sometimes we don't have enough patience. Sometimes we don't have enough time. Sometimes we don't have enough money. Sometimes we just don't have enough, okay? But God's math is different, right? Right? God's math is different. God's math picks up where our math ends. Because He can do exceedingly above and beyond what we even know is capable to be done. So she opened her pantry and she said, "This is all I have." And sometimes that's what we got to do. We just got to be honest with God about where we at. God, I need you. This is all I got. Right? And that's what she did. And so when she made the flour, when she made the bread, um, the jug of oil did not run dry. The widow's miracle was daily. Every morning she went to the jar, there was enough. Daily, enough. Every morning she went to the jug, it was enough. Daily, right? Not an abundance, not a surplus, enough, right? Some of us, we see these big old Powerball numbers, right? And we play the lottery and we think that we about to get a lump sum payment, right? And that's the things that sometimes we want God to bless us in a lump sum. Sometimes we ain't ready for a lump sum. Sometimes he just got to give it to us day by day because he already know what we done in the past, right? So I'm going to give you enough to get you through today because I need you to come back to me daily because I'm going to give you what you need daily because daily is enough, right? So God trusted her with the provision because she said, this is all I have, right? Be honest so God can come in and give you enough. The second widow in Kings, her husband died. And the creditors were coming. The creditors weren't coming for money. They weren't coming for her house. They were coming for her sons, right? Back then, they take your kids to go pay off your debt. So she wasn't just broke. She was about to lose her kids as well. Prophet asked her, well, what do you have? And we've heard this story before, right? So what do you have? She said, nothing. Nothing at all, except a little bit of olive oil. He said, go and borrow as many vessels as you can, right? Get as many as you can. Bring them here, right? And she did. She got all the vessels she could. She took them into the house, her and her sons, and closed the door. And she just started pouring oil, right? And the oil keeps flowing, and it keeps flowing because she has the jars, right? Bring me another, and another, and another. And then her son said, there's no jars left. And the oil stopped. But the oil didn't stop because God ran out. The oil stopped because she ran out of empty, right? She ran out of empty vessels. She ran out of empty, right? Some of us are so full of other things that we don't have no empty for God to fill up, right? We are full of our own solutions. We already know how to fix it, right? We are full of our own plans. I'm going to do it this way. You know, we are full of, I'm fine. I don't need no help. We just full, right? So there's no room. Yes, we are full of it. Right. So that means there's no room for God to try to pour, to fill us up, right? And what's important to know here is that she went inside, she closed the door, and it was something that happened between her and her sons, right? Not just that God gonna work miracles behind closed doors, but God is gonna make your children witness, right, to the provision. So they didn't just get to see the problem, they got to see the provision. And that becomes their inheritance because they see that there is a problem, right? And that you take it to God, right? And you pray to God and God provides the provision. You know, he fills your emptiness as an asset, right? And then your kids take that too. And they know that too. So 2 widows. One had not enough. One had nothing left. And God showed up in both. Humility opens the door. Emptiness creates the capacity. God has never waited for us to be perfect. He only asks that we trust him. My third point is that God provides for you. I don't know. Okay, I was looking at the time. God provides for you. So I want to talk about Hannah in 1 Samuel's, right? Hannah is sad. She is crying. She is devastated, and she's been praying and asking God for just this one thing. And it's important to her because she wants to provide it for her husband, but also because she's being tormented and tortured by the rival wife. right? The rival wife has had kids, and Hannah can't have no kids. And she goes and she prays and prays and prays to the point where um, they think that she's drunk, right? Because the words aren't coming out. She's so, she's gone beyond words, not because she gave up, but because what she's trying to pray for is too heavy for her, it's too heavy for words, right? And sometimes when we don't have words, the Holy Spirit can provide them for us. We just have to show up. So God hears you. He hears your quiet cries. He hears the ones that are at 2 a.m. in the shower. He hears the ones that nobody else is here hears. He hears the ones that you're saying in the car on the way to church. And when she was accused of being drunk, she did not collapse. She did not lash out. She just said, I'm a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my greatest anguish and grief. And then she felt better because she felt like she had truly been heard. So later on, when the baby came, she called him Samuel. Samuel means heard by God. So every time she called Samuel's name, she was declaring that God answered her prayer. Every time she said Samuel, she was saying, God heard me. And that Samuel, the one that she prayed and wept for, the Samuel that almost didn't happen, he became the prophet, right? He became the prophet who anointed the kings of Israel. He anointed Saul, right? Is anybody with me? He anointed David, right? And who came from David's lineage? Did y'all say Jesus? Because I couldn't hear y'all. So did y'all say that Samuel anointed the kings of Israel, right? That means he anointed Saul, he anointed David, and from David's lineage came Jesus, right? So the answer prayer that she held on to years and years and years of silence shifted history, right? And I'm going to ask you, bless you, that every time it comes out, what has God, what have you prayed for, right? What miracle, what moment, what have you prayed for that God has shifted in your life? And God didn't show up, right? Sometimes we think that we have to have it all together, but God didn't show up for Hannah when she had it all together. He showed up for her in her broken place, which means the place that you're in right now is not too broken for God to work with. So again, God hears us. God hears our cries, every single one of them, and God walks with us. I want to go back to where we started, right, with Isaiah. And he says he gently leads those that have young. And we've already established, even though I started off saying motherhood was easy, we've already established that motherhood isn't easy. But because God knows exactly what we're carrying, he adjusts his pace to our weight. All year, Coach has been taking us through this series and teaching us about being yoked up, right? Because God didn't just trust us with children, he yoked himself to us to help us raise them, right? He said, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Yes, And coach has already taught us that a yoke is not something that you carry by yourself. A yoke means you are connected, which means the weight that we've been carrying, we've been never meant to carry it alone, right? God didn't just trust us with the assignment. He committed to walking with us through motherhood. So in the seasons that felt too heavy, maybe it's because you was trying to carry something that you were never meant to carry by yourself. The love, the joy, the peace, the gentleness that children need is a fruit of who you are. It is not a fruit of who you are. It is a fruit of the spirit, right? You were never meant to produce it alone. So the question should have never been, am I good enough mother? Was I a good enough mother? Am I doing it right? The question is, am I staying connected to the source? God is not rushing you. God is not judging you. God is gentle. He is walking with you. You are not alone. So, somewhere in between raising babies and releasing adults, I started carrying the questions, and we start carrying questions. Was I enough? Did I do this right? And the dangerous things about these questions is that they continue to replay over and over, right? Same track, same lie, same voice. And this is actually a concept, if you ever read the book Soundtracks by John Acuff. And he talks about the idea that our minds get stuck on certain recordings and we replay them on a loop without even realizing it. But those replays, they're not our conscience. They're not even God's voice, because God's voice is gentle. And God already knows He's in partnership with you for motherhood, right? So that voice is the enemy. He's working to keep distance between you and who God says you are. Okay? He's working to keep distance between you and how God actually sees you, right? Because if he can keep the soundtrack playing, what else do we have to do, right? Because if the soundtrack is playing, you will disqualify yourself, right? You will shrink from the assignments, right? You will carry this guilt that God never meant for you to have. So we need to release the soundtracks. We need to reprogram them to the words of God. So if it didn't come from God, why are we carrying it, right? So that's something that we need to release. I want to say something to the mothers whose children are going through something right now. Your kids are going to go through things. And God has already showed us and told us that life is not easy. And I know that it's hard to separate, you know, a mother's heart from a child's pain, right? But you just have to understand that we are equipping them with showing them our relationship with God. I'm going to tell you a couple of things before I wrap up. We've all gotten that call, or I've gotten several calls in the middle of the night where I needed to get somewhere, right? There were certain things going on with my kids. A lot of you know that. In December, Talana broke her leg and her ankle. And I needed to get to the hospital. All I heard was cries and hearing her in pain. And I knew somebody that was already there, right? I needed to get there, but I traveled, but God moves differently, right? God is already there. So I just started praying. God, you're already there. Be with my child until I can get there, right? And then there's moments with my son, and I am being intentionally vague about some of the things I share about my kids because I feel like that's their testimony and they get to share that. So I only get to talk about how it's impacted me as a mother. But my son, he goes through things sometimes and it's hard for him and I have to rush to him, right? And I said, God, you are already there. He is your child, Father. Be with him until I can get there. Months later, my daughter is walking now. She has no long lasting impact of breaking her leg and ankle besides the rods in her legs. But she is grateful and thankful for God for her recovery. And a few weeks ago, when I was talking to my son about some of the things he was going through, he said, "Mom, I just started praying." So I want to say the car ride to where you're going to